Hello and welcome to Right from the Kickoff with your host this week, Joe Wright, and joining me as always is William Bayliss. How are you doing, Will?
I'm very well, thank you. Very controversial opinions. I know we've just been talking about off air, so I'm
Yeah,
excited to delve into it a bit more.
yeah, of course. And obviously, we're going to be talking about all this week's games, all this week's action, plus players of the week, plus next week's, this weekend's up and coming fixtures, and then we're going for then obviously we'll go for Joe Asks, Will Tells, which I've got a very interesting topic to talk about with Will, which
Have
I
a
think
feeling of what it might be.
yeah. But before we delve into that, let's just do some housekeeping. So make sure you join us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Make sure you click that subscribe button and always give us a like. It just helps us grow it a little bit. And we are just two lads just having a bit of fun, obviously, but it always helps us to build a bit and I get more content out to you guys, and also more questions and quandaries. So we're going to start off with a big game this weekend. West Ham versus Man United is the main kind of draw this week because we want to lead on to VAR, and then because of that, we're going to then lead on to the Leicester Brighton game because I really want to talk about this week. This is kind of my frustration, but let's go on to the Man U West Ham game. First of all, 2-1 to Man U. It was a good game to watch actually, if you got a chance. But what did you make of it, Will? I really thought that it was West Ham's big chance to prove what they've got, and I thought they did in some aspects. Obviously, at the end, they got very unlucky. Martin Noble missing the penalty. Man United thought they should have had a couple of decisions because of VAR and stuff. What did you make of it, Will?
Well, it was a very good game for a neutral. Some very controversial decisions, weren't they? Obviously, West Ham went 1-0 up um, through Ben Rama, and I think he's coming into his own. Just a little sidebar. And I think he showed glimpses last season, but this season he's really flourishing more. So he's got more of that confidence
Well, I think
to
to
be
be
more
honest,
expressive, doesn't he?
just on Ben Rama, because I completely agree with you, but I also think that when you look at last season, he was coming into his own last season at the end, the back end, but he was also kind of in the shadow of Lingard. And they are similar players, not in position, but in terms of their dynamicness and getting the ball forward and running, because they're both runners with the ball. Ben Rama is more of a dribbler than kind of Lingard, whereas Lingard's more direct running. But they're both kind of similar in terms of the dynamicness. So I think that had a part to play. So now obviously Lingard's gone back to United. Obviously, it bit them in the end, but we'll go on to that. But yeah, obviously Lingard not being there, I think Ben Rama's kind of flourishing a little bit more.
Yeah, I completely agree. So they went 1-0 up for him in the 30th minute. Then Ronaldo scored the easiest goal he'll ever score in his whole career. Uh,
Even easier than that tap in against Newcastle, the first goal
well,
he scored. I'm not really
if,
sure, mate.
if you notice, all the top players are in the right positions at the right time. That's
No,
all you have to do, really.
that's what it is. That's what's Ronaldo's bread and butter in it. So
Yeah, exactly. And then Lingard, the ex-Manchester United player, scoring against his former club. He didn't want to celebrate, did he?
Ex Man United player. I know he was an ex Man United player last season, I suppose, but you meant ex
So
West Ham United, didn't you?
West Ham, yeah, West Ham United player. Uh, and then and then in the 90 plus fifth minute, West Ham get a penalty, and who did they bring on? Mr. Reliable to come on to miss the penalty. What did you make of that one, Joe?
I think it's always a risk. It's always a risk to bring on a player for a penalty.
But
Um,
I think he would have came on anyway. It just so happened that he was the penalty taker, and he
yeah, no, I understand that, but I think the reason I say it's always a risk because it's kind of obviously he's a better penalty taker. He's obviously the best penalty taker on the pitch. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been taking the penalty. But you kind of as a manager, I would probably prefer my players' legs to be warm and just you
no,
know
I completely agree.
so I'm not sure I was okay with that decision. It is a risk. I mean, I saw it last season. Vardy had the same issue. He was coming back from his injury when he had his operation. He came on in sort of the 20 minutes to go. We had a penalty. He came onto the pitch, took the penalty, and missed. The amount of times
Yeah.
you see a player come onto the pitch and miss a penalty, it happens too often, in my opinion.
Yeah, and it's a very unfair thing to like. You saw it in the Euros as well, where England brought on players just specifically for the penalty shootout, and they weren't warm, they weren't ready, and I think it's a similar situation here, isn't it?
Yeah, and the thing is, if you miss that penalty as well, just going on to that, you feel like you failed. Do you know what I mean? You feel like you hold, or you have failed, but I mean your whole kind of world caves in because you've been brought on to do that one job and you've not done it.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
it really relies on whether you have a good or bad day. So it won't do wonders for Martin O'Neill's confidence. Having said that, they've obviously gone and won in the League Cup last night, but yeah, against Man United. So
Yeah, so they certainly got their revenge there.
yeah, for sure. But anyway, so this game, good points for Man United. There was some controversial decisions. Do you want to just talk us through those, Will?
Uh, yeah. So Manchester United should have had a penalty, shouldn't they? What did you make of that one, Jay?
Yeah, no, 100% should have had a penalty. Obviously the player gets brought down in the box. I think it's a bit of a weird one because a lot of fans were like, well, they get what they deserve, sort of thing. But you've got it. This is the thing with football now is we need to take the animosity out of it, take the fact that we think the Man United get a lot of decisions, which I still believe they do. But you've got to referee that moment in the moment. You know what I mean? You've got to, and this is what the thing is with referees. You've got to ask them to referee that moment in the moment. Forget who you. It should be referee it as you see the decision. You do tend to feel like the referees do get kind of taken over by the bigger clubs a little bit because we don't actually know who these referees support, do we? Let's be honest. You do tend to think that sometimes. I don't know about you. I certainly did at the weekend when it was a Leicester game. I did question that. I was like, well, who's the guy in the VAR room supporting? Because that was, we're just not getting a break. But going back to it was definitely a penalty. Gets taken down in the box. I mean, it was definite. It was nailed on for you.
Yeah, 100%.
I mean, the thing is, we look at this and we go, but I think there's always going to be mistakes made, but there was quite a few this weekend, wouldn't you agree, Will? In some of the games, not just the Leicester game, not just the Man U West Ham game, but there was a few mistakes again with VAR, and it's creeping in again. Why do you think that is? Because they've got it so right up to now. I think.
Well, like you were saying, football's not a black or white, and it's all about opinions, and it's all about the laws of the game as well. And they are great. They're not black or white, are they? So I can see why these things happen. It just so happens that a number of controversial decisions happen because in other game weeks, there hasn't been as many. I think it's just been unlucky in a way of the manner of each of them. I
Right,
think.
I'm gonna before we start the Leicester Brighton game, I'm gonna just use your own words against you there a little bit because I know we were talking about it before the podcast, and you were kind of saying I was talking about some of the Leicester decisions being made and the fact that I thought that my team were personally robbed at the weekend, which I still believe. And you were saying, oh, it's not black and white, this, that, and the other. But the fact that you're using the word controversial shows that you think that it is a problem, because you don't use language like controversial or unlucky if you don't think it's a problem. Do you know what I mean?
Like I was saying, there's never going to be a case where it's going to be black and white. Whatever decision someone's going to be making, someone can make the argument against it. Do you know what I mean by that?
I think realistically, though, Will, football. I'm not saying that it isn't more of a grey sport, but it needs to be, especially when we're making big decisions. It needs to be more black and white than it is. I'm not saying fully black and white. Perhaps a bit more murky than grey, but we need to get to the point where these referees and yourself actually get off the fence, because at the end of the day, if we've got this and ahhing, we're never going to make the right decisions.
But what is the right decision though?
Yeah, well, moving on to the Leicester game, and I'll tell you what the right decision is. Moving on to the Leicester game. Right, so this game, I watched this game personally. To be fair to Brighton, played very well for the first sort of 50 minutes, 55 minutes. Got themselves 2-0 up. Just going on to the penalty that they received. Mopé is grappling with, I think it's Ndidi. Mopé's pulling on Ndidi's arm, goes down, wins a penalty, obviously goes to VAR, nothing's changed. And they get a penalty, score from that, go 1-0 up, and then second goal they score 50 minutes in, poor marking from Leicester, really poor marking from the corner, absolutely shambolic. And Welbeck puts in a header, but nobody was marking him, free header basically. And then Leicester come back into it. Vardy scores a well-worked goal, lovely cross from, and Ricardo and Lookman do a bit of an exchange, a 1-2 on the outside of the box. Lookman plays it into Ndidi, who plays a delicious ball into a pocket of space for Vardy, who basically just gets a tap in from close range to make it 2-1. And then kind of chaos ensued. 75 minutes in, ball comes in. Lookman scrambles the ball home. They score the goal. Leicester think they've equalised, and then the goal gets ruled out for offside. I think again it's because Harvey Barnes had been instructed to kind of hassle with the goalkeeper. It was coming back into play. He wasn't in the goalkeeper's line of sight.
But yeah,
no, hang on a second. Let me just explain the thing, and then I'll let you kind of go through and tell me why I'm wrong. And then it's a line of sight. So then he puts the ball in. Then about 85 minutes in, still 2-1. Leicester are piling on the pressure. So for half an hour, it's been relentless pressure, hasn't it, Will? Like relentless pressure from Leicester at this point because they've actually woke up and started playing.
Yeah, it's like they found their game.
Yeah. Ball comes across, and Ndidi headers it into the back of the net. You think, great, 2-2. Goal gets ruled out for offside again. Same issue. Barnes is hassling with the goalkeeper, comes back, tries to come back into an onside position, doesn't get it, but again, he's not really in the goalkeeper's line of sight. I'll let you take it, Will, before I give my opinion on it.
So, I would say one of them should have been given. I can't remember if it was the first one or the second one, but where it came across Barnes, so he wasn't actually like impeding in the vision. The only reason
the first one actually you're talking about, yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like Leicester was highly treated, and
I agree by
the referee.
The one that you're talking about, I do agree, should have been given offside because if it's come across Barnes and he's in the goalkeeper's not line of sight, but he's kind of in the vicinity of the ball as it's going across him, then it should be given offside because you've got a lot to contend as a goalkeeper. So I believe that is an offside. I'm not saying it's not. I'm just saying, I think one of them is an offside. I do agree with you on that.
Yeah, and just like a sidebar, it's Leicester been harshly treated when the opposition manager Graham Potter came out to say, we got kind of lucky this match, didn't he? So I think that says all you need to go. For me, I think a draw would have been the fairest result in the end. Obviously, Leicester deserved something from the game with all those controversial decisions. But the second one, I feel, should have been a goal. And I'm not really sure why it wasn't really.
I mean, Barnes for both of them is standing in an offside position. So there is that. So like you were saying before, and I don't particularly agree with this, but you can see why the goals aren't given because if it's going by the letter of the law, he's standing in an offside position. But we've always been told if he's not interfering with play, which he wasn't for this, then it's not going to be chalked off. Well, it was, and he wasn't interfering with play. So the issue I've got is these referees are obviously making these decisions, and they have got a short amount of time to make them and stuff. But and also, I think it does tend to help just psychology of it. I'm not saying the referees are kind of drawn in by this, but again, home crowd of Brighton can also have an effect on the referee. I think making decisions. If they were playing in Leicester, for example, it might be slightly different. You know, crowds on your back sort of thing to kind of put pressure on you to give the goal. Again, not saying that that's the thing that happens in the Premier League, but you can see the psychology of it. Where my biggest issue, and I want to go back to it actually, is the penalty in the first place. No way on God's earth is that a penalty. That, for me, that is black and white. That's not. There's no penalty. If anything, indeed, he's the one that is fouled. They don't really. He gives the decision, and then for whatever reason, they don't really go and look at it. He didn't go and look at it over at the monitor. You know, they kind of made the decision for him. You know, obviously, he gave the penalty, and I think that's the issue. If you give,
I can see because it has to be enough things to overturn it.
But but this is the thing, mate. There was enough things, like you can literally see in the video, but because he didn't go and see the video, if they'd gone over and shown him a shot of Mopai like holding on to Ndidi's arm, that penalty wouldn't have been given. Like Ndidi's not pushing him, Mopai. He's not kind of hassling with him. So for me, it was just shambolic. And again, I'm not blaming the referee for this one. I'm blaming the guys in the VAR room, because at the end of the day, I can understand why referees do get these split decisions wrong. We saw it
because you can only do what you think is right at the time, and you only get your angle you're at.
Exactly. So when they're talking to each other and they're going, right, should I go and look at it over at the monitor? What am I doing? Kind of thing. What they should say is, even if for me, right, what those guys should do, they should go, right, we think it is a penalty. We agree with you, but if you're still unsure about it, you go and look at the monitor. Like, I think that's honestly something they should do. They should still offer up the monitor if they're kind of 60-40. I don't think they should be making those decisions. You know, if it's in that 50 range, I definitely think, and I just don't see how that can be a stone on penalty, because it wasn't. It was, if anything, it was a stone on not penalty. Like, Mope fouls Ndidi. Like, and I know I'm biased. I know I am, but if you look at the general community of football and talking about that decision in particular, they all say that it's not. So it's not just me saying this. I'm livid about it, because Leicester have had 2 goals chalked off, one that shouldn't have been, and then they've had a penalty given against them. And it just goals change games, don't they? Goals change games.
They changed the momentum of it, and I think that kind of riled you up even more, and they might not have played as well as they could have done because of that. I feel like we could be talking about it like all podcasts if we wanted to. You know what I mean? Like that's how many, like, it's not an easy fix, is it?
I definitely could, but let's move on, because you can tell in my voice. It's now it's Thursday, nearly Thursday lunchtime, and I'm still riled up about it. So
yeah, exactly.
Let's move on.
Do you want to move to the Newcastle Leeds match?
Yeah, Newcastle Leeds match. So obviously this happened on Friday night. Finished 1-1. We both said draws for this, 2-2. What did you make of it, Will? And obviously I caught some of the game as well. I think I caught most of the second half. What did you make of it? And actually, I have to say, I want to say it. I think Leeds at the moment, if they don't pick up momentum, could be in a bit of trouble, because I wasn't impressed by them.
No, I wasn't either, if I'm being honest. Leeds went 1-0 up in this game, didn't they? And then Newcastle just... It wasn't the best game in the world, was it? Let's be real.
No, it wasn't a thralling encounter, was it, to start off the weekend?
Yeah. Do you think, because Leeds had a lot of a possession, but I don't think they're doing enough with it?
I think the issue is Leeds are a high impact, high intensity team. You know, they are kind of doing what they're doing, and you know they want to get into that echelon of kind of, you know, high intensity. And because they're a high intensity, fast breaking team, when a team sits behind them at the moment, they just seem, like I said last week, they seem lethargic, and I thought that again on Friday.
Yeah,
They don't seem as up for it this season. I don't know whether they could just coast, but they could suffer from second season syndrome, like we saw against.
yeah. I was about to say that how many times have we seen this in the past where a team have had a really good first season, the second team they just look like a shell of a former self. Like, let's put it into context. Leeds have not won a game this season.
Yeah,
Out of 5 games, they've drawn 3 and lost 2. And for a club like Leeds from last season, that's nowhere near good enough.
no, it's not. And also, when they have lost, they've not just lost, have they? They've lost quite spectacularly. And you look at the teams they've played. They've played against Burnley now, and they play against Newcastle. Both teams that realistically, before the campaign, if you're a Leeds fan, you'd earmark as potential 3 points. So, I don't think they'll be too happy with that. But we'll see what happens. But again, I don't think I'm too impressed with these. Going on to Newcastle just very quickly. They're still in trouble for me. Still quite poor. Got a good point, but again, it wasn't a great game, and I think Newcastle contributed to that in terms of it not being great. They played okay. They stopped Leeds doing what they needed to do. Obviously, got back into it, but I think both teams at the moment are struggling a bit to get momentum.
Yeah, I do. So I think they need to get the first one on the board to just give them a bit more confidence, don't they?
Yeah, definitely. Right, let's move on to the next game.
So let's move on to Wolves-Brentford. Now, this game finished 2-0 to Brentford. We both actually said it would be 2-1 Wolves, but in hindsight, I don't know why we both thought that.
Yeah, well, I think obviously the Wolves have finally come off the first win in the back week previous. So I think that's kind of what we were feeding off. But I watched this game, and Brentford were just a breath of fresh air. Ivan Tony was brilliant. Malherbe was absolutely brilliant. Fast break, fast pace. They got a man sent off as well on the 64th minute. Didn't change a thing. Again, Traore, all pace, no product. The amount of crosses that he was smacking into the box and overhitting was ridiculous. I think it was about 5-6 crosses, and there's your problem. But Wolves didn't really have any bite. I think Jimenez, since he's come back, has just not been firing. As you can kind of give him that allowance because he had a horrific injury, as we know.
Yeah, I think it'll take him more time.
Last November. So obviously we know that he's struggling, and they've got a new manager. But yeah, I think Brentford again have shown why they're absolutely fine, and of course they absolutely smashed Oldham in the League Cup.
Yeah, I was there.
Yeah, you were there, exactly. That's how I know the result and stuff. So it's looking good for Brentford. In terms of Wolves, again, are they got to be worried, or are you like saying, well, they just lost to the better side on the day?
Yeah, they did lose to the better side of the day, but I would still be worried about taking the chances. Like Brighton last season, their expected goals was so much higher than how many they actually scored because they just couldn't put the ball in the back of the net, and they were relegation contenders as a result. They didn't get relegated, but they were close too. So
Yeah,
I think Wolves need to be wary of taking their chances, don't they?
yeah, of course I do, and I think you're 100% right. Right, moving on to the next game.
So Burnley, Arsenal. Now Arsenal squeaked through this game again, 1-0. What did you think of it?
I thought it was an excellent free kick from Odegaard to get them the win. Arsenal could have had a couple more goals, but equally towards the end of the game, Burnley could have got an equaliser. So, I mean, Arsenal fans at the moment, obviously, they've got some momentum. They got 2-1 nil wins against Norwich and Burnley, but let's be honest. I think
It's nothing to shout about, is it?
it's not, no. And I think realistically, the way they performed. If I'm an Arsenal fan looking at those two performances, I'm not feeling much better than I was when we were going into them because realistically, you'd have expected them to win. I think obviously we were all making jokes and like, oh, what if they lose to Burnley? What if they lose to Norwich, but realistically, especially with being at home against Burnley, you'd expect them to win. They got the win, but they're still looking a bit toothless. And, it'd be interesting this weekend. If they beat Spurs this weekend, I'll give them their dues because they'll play a team that I expect them to lose against.
Yeah, for sure.
So fair enough, but they've not really faced a unbeaten team that we don't predict that they're going to lose against. Do you know what I mean? Or they're not really performing great. So yeah, they've got 6 points. But again, the teams have played that to win those points, that you'd expect them to get those points, wouldn't you? So
yeah, 100%. Shall we move on to the Liverpool Palace game then?
Yeah. Liverpool dominated this game. I think it was Mane scored first, and then Salah got the second late in the second half, and then Naby and Nketiah got the third goal. Palace had chances themselves. New striker Edouard had a couple of opportunities. Should have hit it first time, kind of thing. Half chances. So I think it's kind of the scoreline looks easy, but to be honest, Liverpool did offer up a few chances, but it was a fairly easy win, and also that now means that Salah is 1 goal away from the magic 100 Premier League goals. So he'll be after that, and he's in fine form at the moment, isn't he, Will?
Yeah, really is. I've just put him in my fantasy football team, so long overdue on my ad.
You've needed to because you've actually lost a fair few points because you've not had him in.
Yeah, and half a press, I've used my wild card already because I also put in Ronaldo, so I've got Lukaku, Ronaldo, and Salah now.
I wonder why that is, because I think isn't there someone flying quite high in most of the leagues that you're in? And I think you on you and the need to catch him a little bit.
His name is Robert Bayliss, and I need to catch him up.
Yeah. You know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Just for the audience, I absolutely smashed it again this week.
Yeah.
I got the most points out of 10 teams, so I'm happy with that.
Talking about underperforming, Manchester City versus Southampton finished 0-0. And if you were a City fan, what would you make of it, Jay?
You need to win those games. You need to. If you're going to be title contenders, especially the way Chelsea and Man United and Liverpool have all come out of the blocks, you need to win those games. I actually am slightly more fearful for City this season because, yes, they came good last season, but when we were looking at last season, it was very much at the start of last season. It didn't turn out to be this way, but it was very much a 2-horse race. So in our minds last season, it was very much, Liverpool, Man City for the title. So it was kind of like, oh, they've only got to catch Liverpool sort of thing. And then they kind of blew away the rest of the competition because Chelsea were finding their feet. Obviously, sacked Frank Lampard, got Tuchel in. There was a lot of changes at a lot of different clubs. Man United didn't really have the kind of Ronaldo or Sancho, for example. They didn't have those big name signings. Varane, they didn't have those signings. So whereas I really don't think if they fall too much further behind, I think they will struggle because I can't see them beating the bigger teams like they did last season. I really can't. I think Chelsea have got their number as well. So I said City at the start of the season. I'm very much veering towards Chelsea winning the title now.
But Joe, didn't we still make that £5 bet?
Yeah, we did. But it still doesn't mean I can't change my mind. I mean, it just means that I'll lose a fiver if I'm now wrong. I think City, they are suffering. I think a little bit from not having a striker. I actually do believe that now.
For sure.
Teams are starting to understand how they play. You look at the last 2 games. Obviously they played Leicester and they won 1-0, but it was only 1-0. They didn't blow them away. Southampton, again, 0-0. Very good result for Southampton, actually. Very good. We were both expecting them to get blown away.
Yeah, and I think what you're saying, the striker, and that's that's like shown through only having one shot on target in the whole game. For Manchester City, that's criminal. For the players that they have, that's absolutely criminal.
Yeah, no, it is, but I think do you know what it is? Do you know what it is? And I was talking to a good friend of mine about this recently. Um, he's a Man United fan, but I completely agreed with him when he said this. We were talking about City, and he said if I was managing against City, I'd flood the midfield. I'd flood the midfield. I'd put five in midfield to stop them from playing in there. Because if you look at Man City, when they dominated against Arsenal, the reason they dominated against Arsenal was because they were allowed to play it in the midfield. The amount of times Gundogan turned kind of Odegaard and managed to kind of fire that pass into Torres or fire it onto the wings and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? It was very impressive. But what teams are doing now. Leicester did it last week. Obviously, when I know they lost 1-0 again, but not a heavy loss and could have quite easily got a draw out of it. Same with Southampton this week. What they've done is they've flooded the midfield. It allows them to stop operating because they don't have that number 9. They don't have that number 9 that can really hurt you. As long as you compete with them in the midfield and you kind of go 50-50 in those midfield battles or even win the midfield battle, you're always going to have a chance against City. And this is what teams are starting to work out, and it's something that I've observed over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, that's a very, very good point there, Joe. Let's move on to the next game then. Norwich Watford. Now this game finished 3-1 to Watford. Do you think Norwich were unlucky in this game, or do you think Watford just blew them away?
Watford, I think it'd be unfair to say they blew them away because Norwich were kind of with them for the large parts of the game. It was 1-1 for a long time, but I think Watford were just a class above in terms of out of the two teams at the start of the season. You'd always give Watford a bit more of a crack, kind of staying up, just because. I don't know what it is psychologically for Norwich. They just seem to fall apart in the Premier League. They've now lost 15 Premier League games in a row.
Yeah.
So
very worrying.
You can make what you want of it, but I don't see it getting much better for them. I'm obviously, like I say, going back to the Leicester thing, when we played Norwich and we won 2-1, I was disappointed with our performance. Do you know what I mean? I was very disappointed. And we won. But it's not because, no disrespect to Norwich, I just don't think they're built for the Premier League. Obviously, like we say, they let Buendia go, which I think was a colossal mistake. Going into the Premier League, you don't let your best players go and then don't have anybody to replace him. Because they realistically haven't replaced him, have they? They're going to struggle. Well, I think they'll finish dead last, and we've both put them dead last in our predictions, haven't we?
Yeah.
That's not going to change. Watford have a chance, but I think if Watford hadn't won this game, I think you'd have been more worried for them as well. Do you know what I mean? So I think it was a needs must. They've now got 6 points, on level points with the likes of Leicester and Arsenal. So not a bad start for them, really.
Yeah, and speaking about good starts, Brighton, I know we've already spoken about them, but they're currently in 4th spot, aren't they? They've only lost one game, so they've had a great start to the season.
They're a good footballing side, and the thing is about Brighton is, everybody's thinking, Brighton are going to be kind of whipping boys. We said last season if they start taking the chances, they'll be a lot further up the table.
Yeah, and that's paid dividends now, hasn't it?
It has. I think all kind of key points to Graham Potter, because he's obviously worked on that in pre-season and stuff, and it's paying dividends, like you say. So they're actually taking their chances.
Yeah, for sure.
Moving on. Let's fire through these a little bit because we're just
okay, so Villa Everton. Now this match finished 3-0 to Aston Villa. I wasn't impressed with Everton at all. Were you?
No, not at all. I think it was a case of, again, not one size fits all in terms of like the tactics so far for Benitez has been spot on. But I think they're not. If you use the same tactic every week, it's not going to work all the time because teams are going to start to work you out. They watch you. They watch videotapes of how you perform in the season. It's not going to work, and you just stick with the same thing. And I think that was the problem. The they're sticking with the same sort of tactic, and it works. I mean, obviously they didn't have Calvert-Lewin and they had Richarlison missing. They had a couple of players missing, but it does work to a certain extent. But you can't keep using the same thing and just think, yeah, it's going to work every time. And I think that was Everton's problem. Villa played very, very well. I thought Leon Bailey had the best 21 minutes of his life. Obviously got a goal through the corner in terms of own goal for, and then scored the third with lashing it home past the keeper. So yeah, no, very good result for Villa. Wasn't impressed by Everton.
No, I wasn't at all. So moving on from one 3-0 to another, Chelsea Spurs, and Chelsea were just Spurs were just lackluster, weren't they?
Yeah, well, this is the thing. I mean, realistically, Spurs when they were winning 1-0 and stuff, they weren't playing anyone of any real quality. I mean, I know they beat Man City, but again, they flooded the midfield. But I suppose the two games that they did win, you do expect them to win anyway. And I just think the wheels have kind of come off the new manager hype. They scraped through against Wolves last night in the League Cup on penalties. So I just feel like it could be a tough season for Spurs again.
Yeah, and only time will tell on that one. But how impressed were you with Chelsea then?
Chelsea are brilliant. Chelsea, they're very methodical, is what I say. They're not exactly the most exciting team to watch, but they stick to a plan. They're very defensively sound, and I mean probably the most defensively sound team in the league, which is something that obviously Tuchel's really worked on since he's come in. But now they've obviously got a vocal point in Lukaku, and it allows the other players to get free, because obviously we saw 2 goals from defenders this week, in Thiago Silva and Rudiger. But I thought they were really class outfit, and they seem to be proving that.
Yeah, for sure. Obviously another tough game for Chelsea because they are playing Man City. So that's a really nice segue onto our predictions. Let's go for a quick fire. So I'll say the team, and this time I want you to say the score first. So I've been saying the score first all of the time, so I'm gonna let you do it first when I say what I do. Okay?
Exactly what I was going to suggest, because I want to kind of go with my results.
Yeah.
What I've already got.
So quick fire. Okay. So first game, Chelsea Man City. What are you going for?
I'm gonna go 1-0 Chelsea.
1-0 Chelsea. I'm going 2-2. I think it'll be a tie game. So moving on, Man United, Aston Villa.
Man United, Aston Villa. I'm gonna go 3-1 United.
Okay. Well, I've gone exactly the same. So I wrote all these down before this. So
yeah. So you know, I'm not just joshing with you when I say those are the results I was gonna go for.
Yeah. So Norwich, Everton. So Everton are at home in this game.
Everton. I go 2-0 Everton.
I've gone 2-1.
Right, okay.
Leeds, West Ham.
Leeds, West Ham. I'm gonna go 2-0 West Ham.
I've done exactly the same thing. Leicester, Burnley.
Leicester, Burnley. Leicester at home. I'm gonna go 2-0 Leicester.
So I've gone 2-1. Watford, Newcastle.
Watford, Newcastle. You know what? Is it at Watford?
Yeah.
I'm gonna go 1-0 Watford.
I've gone 2-1 Watford, so very similar scorelines. Now Brentford, Liverpool.
Brentford, Liverpool. It's difficult. I mean, Brentford have had a great start, but I can't. I'm gonna go 3-1 Liverpool.
I've done exactly the same thing again. Southampton, Wolves.
Southampton, Wolves. I'm gonna go 1-1 for this one.
1-1. I've gone 2-1 to Wolves, so we'll see what happens on that one. Now, I don't think you're going to say the same scorelines for me in this term. So Arsenal, Spurs, the North London derby.
It's difficult because Spurs are. Do you know what? I'm going to go 2-2.
2-2. I've gone 0-0.
Okay, so we're both gone for draws.
Yeah, but yeah. Crystal Palace, Brighton, finally. Now, this is a derby match.
I can't see past Brighton win because I just think they've started really well and the way they're playing. I think they're going to dominate the ball. So I'm going to go 2-1 Brighton.
I've gone 2-2. So we'll see what happens with that. So you've gone 2-1 Brighton, and that's all our score predictions. So make sure if you have your own score predictions, please comment them down below. But I'd love to hear them. Over to you, Joe.
Right, okay. So obviously, first question we'll ask you is Player of the Week.
Player, I think that's tricky. Let's have a look. Come back to me on that one. I'm going to think about that a bit more.
Okay, well, I'm going to go for Ivan Toney. I think it's a bit of a left field choice, but I think he had a dominant performance. Obviously scoring a penalty, but if you look at his overall performance in the game, if you'd watched it, I thought it was quality. You know, he got an assist as well, and it was a good assist. You know, it wasn't just a pass across; it was a proper cross pick out your player sort of thing. So he was dominant, very powerful, very quick. I think he's fitting right into the Premier League, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to have to agree with that because obviously he had we haven't touched upon it, but he had a controversial goal ruled out for a handball. So I think, again, more VAR controversy. But yeah, I have to agree with Tony. I thought he ran the show.
Yeah, for definite. Right, let's move on to the question. And it's less a question, but we're just going to talk about a team at this point. And I think you know who that team is, don't you, Will?
Yeah, I knew this was coming.
Yeah, so obviously Derby County, both close to our kind of vicinity of where we live, you know, actually a close team to our hearts in terms of hatred for that team. Both don't like this team, but I will say that this week's events has kind of made me look at it, and we both been on the same page. Obviously, we want them to survive, but they've gone into administration. For those that don't know, been deducted 12 points, and it just seems like a real mess, doesn't it, Will? And it looks like the points deductions could keep coming. It's that bad.
Yeah, it could keep coming. Now they got the 12-point deduction for going to administration. It's an automatic 12-point deduction. They could get a further 9 through past allegations of wrongdoing in terms of their accounts. And if it carries on, they could get a further 15 later on if they carry on being in a lot of trouble. But the figures for me, Mel Morris didn't need to put the team under administration because he could have carried on what he's been doing. If he's been saying for months, even for the last year, that they're really close to finding another buyer. So he's been writing off a debt, and he said that last week as well. So this is why it blows a lot of people's mind, because he could have carried on writing off the debt and paying it off. He didn't need to put the club under administration right now. If he was that close to finding a buyer, why would you do that now?
Yeah, he's obviously nowhere near finding a buyer, is he? That's the end of the day. He doesn't see the light at the end of the tunnel, and I think why. To use your words, that we've been talking about it all week. To use your words, that's why he's thrown in the towel, hasn't he? At this point.
Yeah, and you have to feel so for the people around the club. Like, he didn't tell his staff, including Wayne Rooney, which Wayne Rooney has been paid for multiple things for the last few weeks, which just came out. But he didn't tell Wayne Rooney or any of his staff that were going into administration. He actually found out through Sky Sports News. And I would be worried if I was associated with Derby right now because, say, the stakeholders around the club, not just the players, but people behind the scenes, the catering teams and everything, the administration is going to have to find some money from somewhere, so they're going to cut costs where they can, and people are going to lose their jobs as a result of this. And it's just so sad to see, regardless of who you support. Like, we're all people at the end of the day, aren't we?
Yeah, I think this is a key point I've been making all week, and I think this is we've both kind of even on this show, haven't we? Have kind of made our voices and opinions clear on the fact we both dislike this club in Derby in terms of football, in terms. But when it comes down to kind of being in administration and stuff, it's we obviously feel sorry for them, but that's not the be all and all. The way I'd look at it is, and I'd say this to all Forest fans actually, mainly because obviously they're your biggest rivals, and I know you're on the same page as me. Well, I've seen a lot of stuff. Forest fans laughing at Derby's situation. Obviously you're going to do that. You're going to poke fun and stuff. But let me just point this out, and I've made this point abundantly clear to you, Will, haven't I? If this continues, and Derby at the moment they've started the track towards liquidation, so their club won't exist, right? Genuinely, they have started that track, haven't they? Let's be honest. That from what we've heard out of different podcasts and different kind of avenues of news, that's kind of what we're getting. At this point, this is very serious stuff. Now, if Derby get liquidated, if they're no more, Forest fans, you won't have anybody to hate. There will be no club to hate. Like, that's the point. Like, how you have banter with Derby fans, all this stuff, all this kind of like, great rivalry and stuff like that. Because that's what it is. It's a great rivalry. As much as you hate each other, that's what makes love. What makes football at the end of the day. If Derby get liquidated, that'll be no more. So you can sit there and you can laugh at them, but you won't have anybody to laugh at. And this is the point. This is the point I'm trying to make. This isn't down to hatred of a club. This is down to a club's fighting for their own existence at this point. And that's the point I want to make. It's when it comes to clubs going into administration, I don't care which club it is, you don't want to see it happen. And I for one do not want to see Derby go out of existence, because at the end of the day, they're a great club with great history. It's the nicest thing I've ever said about Derby, I've got to be honest. But do you know what I mean? They are a club steeped in history, and for that to potentially all wiped away, if we're a fan in that position and that's our club, we'd be devastated. So if Derby end up doing a bury, then it could end up really nasty. I'm not saying it's going to, but they are in serious trouble. Like, make no bones about that.
Yeah. And one key thing is that it's the most likelihood that they might get relegated due to points deductions, because they're going to have to strip assets from the club where they can. One of the main worries is that they don't own the stadium, so they have nothing to strip to that. Mel Morris, fans that add £100,000 retractable roofs so they can put concerts on. Now, why would... There's just so many things wrong with that. But if they were going to do that in between the games, that'll be a good revenue stream. So with a retractable roof. So, but how can he afford to do that but not to underwrite other things? It's a very backhanded. And also on top of that, why would the ground staff are very secret about the grass, aren't they? So why would they want that? There's just so many layers of complexities. We could sit here all week and not get to the bottom of it, because there's so many things which we don't know.
Well,
even football finance experts don't know. Even Mel Morris came out saying basically it's everyone else's fault. It's COVID's fault. It's the EFL's fault. It's everyone else's fault apart from himself.
Yeah, but the issue is he's obviously he's kind of issued an apology to the Derby fans for going into administration. But at the end of the day,
but he hasn't though. It's just all. It's all like,
isn't it? It's gaslighting. It's the fact that he knows that he's put this club in this situation. At the end of the day, if you don't have the money to own a football club, and that means contracts, that means owning the stadium, the money. Well, they don't own the stadium, but you know what I mean. People think when it comes to running a football club, it's just about running the players, but it's everything that goes with that, isn't it? It's the business side of things. It's like you say, it's the grass, it's the groundsman. You're paying your staff in terms of in and around the ground, extracurriculars, community stuff, stadium tours, all of that. It all encompasses into one. Football clubs are like communities a lot of the time, and so it's not just about football as one. It's running everything alongside that. And if Mel Morris wasn't in like a fit position to do that, he should have pulled out well before now. But obviously,
it's nothing about his wealth. He still has his net value. He probably still has £500 million in the bank. If he wanted to, he could underwrite that and still have £400 million. But he's not doing that. So why would a potential buyer come in to buy the club for something if they are in trouble? Why would they come in to buy in the club, have to come in and wipe all the debts? Mel Morris is still owed £100 million because they're in administration. the club only has to pay back 25% of that if Mel Morris persists with that. So if you were a Derby fan, you'd be like, Mel, just,
Well,
just wipe that debt.
yeah, but this is the issue though as well is like you were just saying. Just one more final point before we end the podcast. But it's the fact of the matter is nobody's going to want to come in and buy the club now. And also, when he's been saying, "Oh, potential buyer for Derby, potential buyer for Derby," all this stuff, he's obviously sat down with people. What he's probably done is he's probably gone through with them their finances because he's had to show them the books right at the end. So they're all ready to sign on the dotted line. Right, okay, show me the book, show me what I'm buying in terms of financial. They're like kind of the last thing to do. And they've gone, hang on a minute, what's all this? So I'm not just buying a football club. I've also got to pay off, like you were just saying, all the debt and stuff. So they've probably gone, no thanks, see you in a bit.
Yeah, I think that'll be one of the first things that they'd want to look at. To be fair, and that's why they haven't been publishing any of their accounts, which is against trade law. But yeah, and why would anyone want to buy a club if they're going to be in League One next season, which they probably will be at this rate?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that I hate this phrase "big club" because big club by name. Yes, you are. Like I say, Derby's steeped in history, but it's when do you stop being a big club? Do you know what I mean? Because you don't, do you? I mean, a lot. People say, "Oh, there's lots of big clubs down there." I suppose it's also about the fan support. We talked about Forest on numerous occasions, and the fact that your fans show up week in, week out for your club on a constant basis. Some of the highest attendance in the Championship, even though you've had some quite woeful performances this season. So I suppose it is down to that. But I think Derby fans are definitely in for a rocky ride, and that's putting it lightly.
Yeah, for sure. And if you want to find out some more details, far more than we do, check out the Price of Football podcast, and it's really insightful, and we know what we're talking about. So check that out. I know you're going to check that out, Joe, aren't you?
I will be. So I'll be listening with you guys, hopefully. Right. Just to end the podcast. Thanks, guys, for listening today, and don't forget to join us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Give us a like and subscribe because that's the way that we get this kind of stuff boosted. Thanks for listening, and cheers again today, Will.
And thanks very much. I'll see you later.